Discovered as a single mom at my son's wedding. I left when my nameplate said charity case MA. Emily stood at the edge of the grand ballroom, surrounded by sparkling chandeliers and elegantly coiffed guests, feeling like a ghost at her own son's wedding. Each laugh and clink of crystal filled the air with a stifling pressure that made her heart race and her stomach twist. A seating chart hung on the wall, and as she scanned the names, her blood ran cold. Emily Brown Charity Case. The label burned into her mind, dredging up the memories of how she had fought tooth and nail since her husband's death, raising Jake alone, each year harder than the last. What kind of mother allows herself to be branded this way? She thought. Loneliness enveloped her as guests mingled, faces blurring together, laughter echoing mockingly around her. She had spent years nurturing Jake, working late as a nursing assistant, sacrificing her own dreams to ensure he would have every advantage life could give him. But now, here she was, adrift in a sea of wealth, feeling less than human among the glimmering wealth of her late husband's family. As the ceremony began, the joyous union of Jake and his bride seemed detached from Emily's reality. Her mind circled back to nights spent in worry, the crushing weight of bills threatening to swallow her whole. There had been no help from her husband's affluent relatives, only whispers about financial burdens, and a general air of disdain. She shifted on her feet, feeling the tension build, the shrill laughter cutting through her thoughts. Could they not see her blood, sweat, and tears mingled in the very fabric of every choice she had made? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The blinking lights of the reception intensified, and as the toasts began, Emily felt more isolated. Each glowing smile only amplified her sense of inadequacy. It was suffocating, inviting her to shrink into a corner, but she couldn't. A flicker of hope danced in her chest as she spotted Dr. Richards, a compassionate physician from the hospital where she worked, weaving through the throngs. He had seen her strength, her determination, and a part of her yearned to embrace that acknowledgement, even in this gilded prison. Gathering the scraps of courage she had left, Emily made her way toward him, only to witness the icy matriarch of the family, a woman draped in diamonds and authority, watching her with palpable disdain. Their eyes locked, and a slow dread curled within. Words formed, bubbling up from the core of her heart, pride and humiliation clashing. Would she allow her dignity to be shunned by the charity case offense? Jake's steadfast gaze met hers, a beacon amidst the glittering chaos. His confidence radiated, and for a fleeting moment, Emily felt empowered until she remembered who she was up against. The tension electrified the air, raising the stakes of the clash between Emily and the matriarch. Would she step back and be silent, or confront the legacy of condescension that threatened her very being? Desperation tightened its grip, as unseen whispers hung heavily, echoing the prejudices of generations that Emily now had to face. Just as she summoned the last bits of resolve to step forward, a figure loomed in the doorway, someone from her past. A specter of old memories that threatened to unravel everything she had fought for now stood waiting to collide with her future. The very essence of her story dangled in the balance, a cliffhanger stretched taut with unanswered questions, leaving Emily teetering on the brink of reclamation or retreat. Emily's focus sharpened as the figure stepped into the room. It was Michael, an old friend whose presence summoned a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Memories cascaded around her, mornings filled with laughter, evenings spent sharing dreams that felt so distant now. Michael had always been a steadying force in her life, comforting her through the tumultuous days after Jason's death. Yet, time had peeled away layers, and now he represented both comfort and chaos. His eyes searched for hers amidst the clinking glasses and boisterous laughter, but the instant he recognized the storm inside her, his expression shifted. Recognition morphed into understanding, as if he could sense the weight of the label that clung to her. The past might have been filled with warmth, but right now, she only felt the icy pang of judgment. As he approached, A voice in her head urged Emily to retreat, to slip back to the shadows where self-doubt could thrive undisturbed. But another voice, brave and emboldened, countered. This was her moment to reclaim herself. She steadied her breath, weaving through the crowd toward him, resolve igniting in her chest like a flame against the biting chill of the past. "Emily," he said softly, as if speaking her name could erase the distance time had created. "Michael," she replied, her voice wavering. "What are you doing here?" "I came to support Jake, of course," he said, his genuine smile breaking the tension. "But I didn't expect to see you after all these years." "Long years," she acknowledged, a thin veneer of nostalgia coating her words. "Is everything okay? You seem tense." He searched her eyes, desperately looking for an entry point into the wall she'd built. Instead of offering an explanation, she shifted her gaze to the family members laughing and toasting, unaware of her inner turmoil. "I was just thinking about how far we've come since those days when we used to dream about changing the world together. Now I feel lost amongst this." "Emily, you're not here for them. You're here for Jake." His tone turned firm, and the conviction in his voice washed away some of her fears. "Don't let them label you. You've fought for your life. Don't let their perception define who you are." His words struck a chord deep within her, a reminder of her strength as a mother. She had spent endless nights tending to Jake's needs and chasing dreams of becoming a nurse practitioner. Now, standing before the embodiment of her past aspirations, she realized she could forge a new identity that embraced both her love for her son and her ambitions. She shook her head, shaking off the self-pity that wrapped around her like a shroud. "You're right. It's just, I thought this was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, I feel like I'm always standing in the shadows." "Then step into the light, Emily." He gestured to the dance floor, where couples swayed. "Let them see you, not as a charity case, but as a force to be reckoned with." With a twinge of uncertainty, Emily hesitated. But the encouraging gleam in Michael's eyes inspired her to choose courage over fear. She focused on Jake's radiant smile, rather than the judgment she had felt a moment ago. In this fleeting moment, she recognized the power of her choices. Confrontation did not always require a loud declaration. Sometimes, it was simply about claiming space in a life that had often tried to diminish her. As she moved toward the open floor, the matriarch's gaze bore down on her, and for the first time, Emily met it head-on. In that instant, she steeled her spine, her heart racing with both freedom and certainty. This was more than a wedding. It was an opportunity to redefine her narrative. And as she stepped forward, the rhythm of familiar music pulsed through the hall, reminding her of all the moments she'd almost let slip away. The weight of her past and the endless possibilities of her future collided in an exhilarating dance of self-realization. Emily took a breath, feeling the resolve swell within, ready to reclaim not only her identity but her power. But just as she grasped the contours of her resolve, a hushed murmur rippled through the crowd at the entrance behind her. Another familiar face appeared, one that crashed sharply against her newfound confidence, plunging her back into uncertainty. The confrontation she had sought wasn't over. It was just beginning. Who was waiting at the threshold to challenge her redemption? Emily's breath hitched as she turned slowly, instinctively searching for the source of the murmurs behind her. The sharpened sensation of dread made her stomach drop. Expectations hung in the air like the heavy scent of floral arrangements, thick with the promise of judgment as she caught sight of the newcomer. It was Molly, a face from her past that brought with it a history laden with assumptions about her life choices. Molly's presence unleashed a rush of visceral memories. Competitive glances at playdates, whispered conversations about societal benchmarks, and the feeling of being sidelined in a world still championing ambition. The label of single mom loomed over her, more pronounced than ever, and suddenly, the exhilaration she felt moments before faded into a fog of vulnerability. As Molly made her way toward her, the whispers intensified. From the corner of her eye, Emily spotted the matriarch sending surreptitious glances that made her skin prickle. For a fleeting moment, she felt the walls of power she'd just begun to build quake under the scrutiny, threatening to collapse her resolve. But she also felt the echo of Michael's words, "Don't let them label you." "Emily, I didn't expect to see you here," Molly called out, her tone dripping with disingenuous cheer. "How's life treating you?" Emily fixed her posture, roots of confidence taking hold in her spine. "It's good, actually," she said, allowing a friendly smile to brighten her expression, despite how false it felt. "Busy, with work and Jake." "Oh, of course." Molly's eyebrow arched slightly, as if weighing Emily's response on a scale of societal worth. "Are you enjoying the freedom of being a single parent?" The question wrapped itself around Emily's neck like a noose. It was the kind of query handed out from a person perched firmly on the outside, looking in. With every extra float of Molly's tone, Emily felt the weight of 1,000 judgments, fears that she would be reduced to nothing more than a narrative of loss, of pity. "Freedom?" Emily repeated, her voice steadier than she felt. "I'm learning that freedom doesn't come without its challenges, and sometimes it feels like a battle. But I'm fighting for what I want." The words felt surreal as they left her mouth, charged with both determination and vulnerability. In that moment, a trace of empowered defiance sparked within her. This was her journey, and she refused to let someone like Molly redefine its worth. "Good for you." The smile faded from Molly's face as the smugness returned. "Some of us are just lucky enough to have a partner to share the load." Emily clenched her teeth. Uncertainty churned within her, battling against the newfound conviction she had been grasping moments before. It took everything in her not to roll her eyes or challenge Molly outright, which might have turned into a cathartic confrontation. Instead, she took a breath, grounding herself in her reality. "I may not have a partner, but I have a son who motivates me every day to rise above the challenges," Emily answered, the words flowing with newfound fluidity. "And that's enough for me." As the tension thickened between them, time seemed to slow down. Eyes from around the room flicked between both of them, absorbing the clash as if it were a performance staged for their entertainment. Yet Emily saw this not as an audience, but as a mirror reflecting her own fears and triumphs, forcing her to confront the narrative she had internalized. Suddenly, she was aware of the dance floor alive with unrestrained laughter, of Jake mingling among guests, radiant and oblivious to the firestorm that raged beside his mother. More than anything else, she wanted to protect that light. With purposeful steps, Emily turned her attention back to the dance floor. "Excuse me, Molly," she said, her voice polite yet firm. "I have to check on my son." As she left the conversation behind, determination surged through her. In both the mundane and monumental, Emily realized that the true challenge was her own self-perception. The moment transformed into a pivotal lesson. She could reclaim her narrative even among people who tried to impose limitations. What mattered now was finding strength in the uncertain path ahead, and embracing the complexities of motherhood alongside her own aspirations. But just as that resolve fortified her spirit, another sensation rippled through the crowd, a shadow cast by the unfolding story she had once tried to escape. Could she truly embrace this new chapter, free from the weight of others' expectations? Or would the next confrontation force her to revisit old wounds she had hoped to bury? Emily's heart raced as she navigated the crowd toward the dance floor, a kaleidoscope of emotions swirling within her. Determined to shake off the remnants of her encounter with Molly, she focused solely on Jake, who was still vibrant and carefree, embodying the kind of joy she had momentarily lost sight of. He caught her eye, his infectious laughter melting her insecurities into the background. As she approached, Jake's eyes sparkled with mischief. "Mom, come dance with me," he shouted, pulling her toward the music, the rhythm counteracting the storm of doubt that brewed in her mind. She obliged, twirling him around and feeling the overwhelming weight of disappointment lift, if only for the moment. But the shadow of Molly hung heavy on her thoughts. What had felt empowering in their confrontation now morphed into a nagging curiosity. Why did Molly's words linger? Was her definition of freedom truly solid, or was it as fragile as a cookie crumbling under the pressure? Each twirl with Jake made her more aware of her own internal dance, the push and pull between her desire for self-acceptance and the lingering doubt instilled by others' perceptions. This was the arena where she faced her greatest battles, reconciling her ambitions with the scars of judgment from those who had always measured worth in traditional ways. After a lively round of dancing, Emily guided Jake toward a quieter corner where the sound dimmed to a soothing murmur. She watched her son bubble with excitement, brimming with stories and dreams untainted by societal expectations. In that space, she reminded herself that despite the chaos, She was building a future for him, one that would be filled with understanding, resilience, and freedom in its truest form. "Are you having fun?" she asked, her heart swelling with pride at his enthusiasm. He nodded vigorously, his face brightening. "Best day ever, Mom. Can we come back tomorrow?" Emily chuckled, wishing she could preserve his naive happiness indefinitely. But as the festivities stirred around them, she pondered how long she could maintain her current balance of duties and dreams. She comforted herself with the thought that she was actively crafting the life she desired, and that Jake's happiness depended on her strength. Yet just as she felt buoyed by that realization, the creeping unease resurfaced. How would she face the dread of encountering others who saw her through the lens of past choices? The notion curled around her thoughts like a smothering vine, urging her to retreat instead of engage. Then a voice pulled her from her spiral. "Emily, is that you?" A familiar face emerged from the crowd. It was a colleague from her earlier career days, Brian. His presence carried a blend of surprise and warmth, but Emily felt the familiar wall of self-doubt creeping back in, mirroring the way Molly's presence had. "Hi, Brian," she exclaimed, her voice tinged with artificial brightness. "What brings you here?" He grinned, but Emily noticed a flicker of pity in his gaze. It stung, reminding her of how quickly people could draw conclusions. Did he see her as a success or a cautionary tale? "Just came to support a friend," he replied lightly. "I was surprised to hear you were a single mom now. How has it been?" Taking a deep breath, Emily steeled herself for this new interrogation. Could she rise to the occasion, just as she had with Molly? "It's been an adventure," she said with a deliberate smile, squaring her shoulders. "I'm finding my own way, rebuilding what matters." The words hung in the air, tinged with a note of vulnerability. Brian's expression softened, but instead of probing further, he simply nodded. "That's great to hear. You always had it in you, didn't you?" His words, though meant to uplift, ignited an ember of doubt within her. Did he mean the old Emily, or this new version stumbling through the trials of motherhood and career? As they chatted, she felt the urge to examine the implications of her evolving identity. Here in this moment, could she acknowledge herself as both a mother and a professional, intersecting identities, without needing to justify one for the other? With a newfound awareness, the realization struck this wasn't just about others' perceptions. It was about her own acceptance of the complexities of her life. She had the power to reshape her narrative. But as this enlightenment settled within her, another voice echoed in her mind. The remnants of judgments lingered like shadows, ready to pounce. Would she allow the past to define her future still, or would she confront the reality of her situation head-on? The tension simmered within Emily, her thoughts racing to leap toward the next confrontation ahead, each interaction carving the path toward the uncharted territories of her identity. The moment felt poised on the brink of a revelation. Suddenly, she was faced with the choice to confront these shadows or retreat once again. What truth awaited her in the next conversation? Would she seize the opportunity to define herself without the shadow of others looming over her? The answers lay just beyond reach, teasing the edges of her psyche as she prepared for the next push, a decisive moment that could alter everything. As Brian's words echoed in her mind, Emily felt a swell of emotions rise and clash. The lively music faded into a muted backdrop, allowing the uncertainty festering within her to fill the space once intended for carefree conversation. In the whirlwind of small talk, she had repeatedly sidestepped the deeper inquiries that lay coiled beneath the surface. Yet now, with Jake spinning happily, oblivious to the unease anchoring her heart, she recognized she could not avoid this impending confrontation, both with Brian and within herself. "I always had it in me." His comment prodded her like a splinter. What did she possess that was worth sharing? It was easy to applaud the confident version of her, the one who had once thrived in a vibrant career, but who was she now? Would she measure her worth against past accomplishments, or perhaps redefine it in a context that acknowledged present struggles and victories? "Is it okay if I go grab some air?" Emily asked suddenly, her eyes darting toward a quieter alcove just outside the swath of singing and laughter. "Sure. I'll catch up with you in a bit," Brian replied, oblivious to the internal battle brewing within her. Stepping outside, a wave of cool night air greeted Emily, brushing against her flushed cheeks. She leaned against the wooden railing, watching groups congregate in animated conversation. The laughter wafted through the cool twilight as she inhaled deeply, attempting to dispel the nagging anxiety that nested in her chest. What she had just done with Brian was not merely a conversation. It was a performance, one where she wore a mask hiding the turmoil beneath. She felt the pressure of expectations close in, squeezing until the breath caught in her throat. If she were to truly embrace her new identity, she would need to shed the protective layer of pretense. The weight of authenticity tugged at her heartstrings, whispering promises of freedom if she dared to let go. A moment of distraction flitted in front of her when Jake rushed out, his face alight with excitement. "Mom, can we get ice cream?" "Yes. Let us go," she replied, invigorated by the simplicity of his request. Within that innocent ask there lay a truce against doubt. If she could step fiercely and unapologetically into a shared moment with Jake, perhaps she could rewrite the terms of her own existence. One scoop of ice cream at a time. As they moved through the throngs, Emily felt a sliver of empowerment unfurling. With every confident step toward the entrance of the ice cream stand, she gathered strength from within, buoyed by the joyful spirit of her son who innocently believed in her infinite capacity to make magic out of small moments. Jake's enthusiasm bubbled over as he eagerly discussed which flavors to sample first. Amidst his chatter, Emily engaged her mind in self-reflection, a practice foreign to her before the upheaval of her life, but vital now. What steps could she take to assure her control over her narrative? The doubts persisted, shadows whispering their doubts at the back of her mind. Gradually, she recognized them for what they were. Mere echoes of a past Emily, an Emily who no longer resonated with her aspirations for the future. They reached the stand, glowing under the twinkling fairy lights strung overhead. Jake hopped excitedly, scanning the colorful options as she contemplated her own choice. "Mom, what flavor are you getting?" he asked, eyes wide. "I think I might try something bold, maybe strawberry lemon," she said, surprising even herself. Each syllable seemed like a small, definitive act of stepping away from complacency. It wasn't just about choosing ice cream. It was a reminder that she could make decisions rooted in her desires rather than projected expectations. As they waited, she grasped the moment, encompassing how embracing her multidimensional identity could become empowering rather than burdensome, that she could be a dedicated mother, a professional, and a woman grappling with her place in the world. "Hey, you alright?" Brian's voice came wafting back, echoing off the brightness of the ice cream. "Stunt." Emily turned, caught in a thoughtful stance. The time had come to confront the old image Brian and others held of her. To narrate in bold strokes her redefined self. "Actually, I think I am," she said, her voice steady. "I'm really working through some things, and I'd like to share that with you." Her declaration hung in the air like the evening stars, twinkling with possibility. The next move was critical. Would she step fully into her narrative transformation? Or would she still tread lightly, afraid of their judgments? The path ahead, unfurling with uncertainty, beckoned, laden with the potential to reshape her future. As the moment stretched, it felt increasingly clear that she could no longer hide away or dilute her story. What awaited her through that door of confrontation? Would she risk revealing the deeper complexities of her experience? Or would she retreat into familiar shields? Deciding to claim her path, she focused on Brian, ready to unearth the truth blooming within her. But the sound of ice cream scoops buzzing with laughter became the backdrop for a stillness that urged her forward. What truths would she reveal in the face of judgment? Would she finally confront the past that had shadowed her long enough? The answers shimmered on the horizon, drawing her into the next moment of reckoning. The cool air wrapped around Emily as she turned to face Brian. He stood there, the question lingering unasked in his eyes. Her heart raced, a tumult of excitement and trepidation spiraling within her. The weight of her unresolved past mixed with an exhilarating sense of authenticity. She had reached a pivotal moment. "Really, what have you been working through?" Brian probed, his brow furrowing slightly. A rush of words nearly spilled from her mouth, a torrent of experiences that had shaped her over the past few years. Yet she hesitated. The weightiness of vulnerability loomed large. What if he didn't respond with the understanding she craved? I've been trying to find out who I really am again," she began, the admission tasting foreign yet liberating. "Losing my job reshaped my identity. And I realized that I've been living in the shadows of my past achievements instead of embracing the person I am now. Brian listened intently, his expression softening. That sounds tough. We all struggle with identity, but it takes courage to confront it. It was a big part of my own journey. Their shared connection ignited a flicker of hope within Emily. Perhaps she wasn't as alone as she felt. Encouraged, she continued, I've spent so much time trying to fulfill everyone else's expectations that I've neglected my own desires. I want to not only be a mother but rediscover my passions, my career ambitions. The acknowledgement simmered like an unexpected flame. She hadn't spoken those words aloud, and now that she did, they took on a life of their own. Brian smiled, his demeanor shifting from that of a casual acquaintance to an unexpected ally in her journey of self-discovery. What about your passion for design? Have you considered returning to that? He asked, genuinely curious. Emily's mind raced. The thread of her past life, the one filled with colors, aesthetics, and design concepts, had remained buried beneath layers of doubt and obligation. Could she reignite that spark? The question dug deeper than she anticipated, awakening dormant dreams that had once soared in her heart. I haven't dared to think about it, she confessed, a tremor of hope threading through her voice. It feels too risky right now, with everything changing. He nodded, I steady. But isn't that the point of transformation? To take risks? Facing those fears might just lead you back to what sets your soul on fire. His words hung in the space between them, urging Emily to reconsider. She was tired of allowing fear to dictate her path. In that instant, she envisioned the design studio she had dreamt of years ago, filled with inspiration, a place where creativity could flourish. As she stood at that crossroads, she felt the stirrings of determination rising to the surface. Awareness washed over her. It wasn't just about returning to design for the sake of success. It was about reclaiming her identity. Jake needed to see his mother not only as a caretaker, but as someone pursuing her own dreams. Every journey starts with a single step. Maybe it's time for me to take that step, she said, her own resolve surprising her. Brian's smile widened. That's the spirit. I'd love to help however I can. I've seen people thrive when they rekindle their passions. For a moment, Emily lost herself in the bright possibilities. But the realization soon hit her. She wasn't just rekindling her passion. She was redefining the narrative of her life. Yet within that clarity, an echo of apprehension crept back. What if she failed? What would it say about her? She pushed those thoughts aside for now. The dream was alive again, leaping toward her like a flame eager for kindling. Thank you for encouraging me, she said, feeling unburdened. But I think I need to take this journey on my own terms. I don't want to feel dependent on anyone else's validation. Totally understandable. Just remember that growth is not linear, Brian replied, his voice steady and comforting. You'll have moments of doubt, but that doesn't diminish your path. Just keep moving. As they discussed small steps she could take, reaching out to former colleagues, setting up a portfolio, Emily could feel new energy coursing through her. Each idea felt less daunting and more like stepping stones towards something vibrant. But as clarity began to surface, so did gnawing uncertainty, lurking like a shadow over her enthusiasm. How would she juggle the demands of parenthood while reigniting an old flame? Would this new endeavor threaten her role as a mother? The questions loomed larger, echoing in her mind. What would a balanced life look like? And what sacrifices would she need to make along the way? As she and Jake headed back, an idea flared within her. A plan beginning to take shape amidst her swirling emotions. But there lay a challenge ahead, one that would ask everything of her. Would she forge ahead on this fresh trajectory, willingly navigating the complexities of her identity? The realization held the weight of possibility and peril. Her journey had only just begun. And as they walked toward the laughter and warmth inside, the horizon of her transformation loomed larger than ever. What would be the first bold step she would take on this redefined journey? And could she manage the inevitable pushback? The soft hum of the evening surrounded Emily as she returned to the familiar beat of her routine. The cozy confines of their home often brought her comfort. Yet tonight, the confines began to feel stifling. She caught a glimpse of her reflection in the hallway mirror, an image caught between who she was and who she aspired to be. With Jake nestled comfortably in his bed, She allowed herself a moment of solitude to breathe. The quiet had a strange way of amplifying her growing desire to redefine her life. Yet the persistent whispers of uncertainty echoed louder in the silence. Would she dare to step away from the security imbued in motherhood to pursue her passion? An idea began to crystallize in her mind, demanding attention. She would take a leap, not just a tentative step, but a leap that would propel her into the unknown. Perhaps she could start small. Create a blog focused on design and parenting, sharing her journey as both an artist and a mother. It could be a place to funnel her creativity while centering on the profound changes she sought. But could she do it? The thought sent a ripple of fear coursing through her. Publicly exposing her vulnerability could invite scrutiny, and she was aware of how judgmental the world of social media could be. What if her attempts were dismissed as naive or uninspired? The idea of being labeled a charity case at an event or gathering horrified her. She spent years curating her identity, and becoming the subject of ridicule was the last thing she desired. Still, the pull toward self-expression was undeniable. What if I find my voice? She whispered to her reflection, a question that felt like both a promise and a challenge. She closed her eyes, envisioning the potential audience, a community of women perhaps, navigating similar struggles. Her heart beat a little faster at the thought of connecting with others, sharing insights about the creative process, and discussing balancing the demands of motherhood. As the sun dipped lower, casting shadows across the room, Emily began to plot out the first steps. She would attend a local meetup for creatives. What if she networked with people who could reignite those forgotten ambitions? The thought of mingling sparked anxiety, yet a glimmer of excitement threaded through it. It was time to step out from the security of her routine and embrace the risk. Okay, I can do this, she affirmed, gripping the edge of the dining table as if it anchored her resolve. This wasn't just for her. It was for Jake too. She wanted him to see a mother who chased her own dreams, not just someone who hovered in a world of expectations. She wanted to model resilience and passion. Yet, the challenge loomed larger, spiraling doubts swirling alongside her excitement. As she mapped out her plans, questions trailing like smoke after a match flickers out momentarily danced in her mind. What distractions would she need to remove? Would Jake understand her journey, even at such a young age? Despite it all, she felt an intensity coursing through her, as if each thought propelled her closer to a burst of creativity. She resolved to write an outline for her first blog post, the journey of reclaiming her identity, and soon enough, her fingers flew over the keys, pouring raw emotion onto the page. With every word, the weight of her hesitation gradually lifted, replaced by the exhilaration of agency. As night deepened, Emily dimmed the lights around her and stared into the darkened window, the world beyond fading into a gentle blur. It was time to transform those whispered ambitions into actions. However, an unsettling thought lurked beneath her newfound determination, the fear of what could go wrong once she truly stepped into the spotlight she had long avoided. She sank back into the chair, feeling the magnetic pull of her dreams and the mounting pressure of impending decisions. A battle was brewing within, and she knew it wouldn't be easy. Would she have the stamina to withstand the inevitable pushback? Her heart raced with both trepidation and anticipation. Tomorrow would mark the beginning, a choice to emerge as the person she was meant to be or retreat into the comfort of fear. But as encouragement blossomed, one truth remained. The risk of remaining stagnant felt far greater than the fear of stepping forward. What awaited her on this path? And could she navigate the crossroads of personal ambition and motherhood without losing herself in the process? Morning light began to seep into Emily's bedroom, its gentle encroachment softening the edges of her anxiety. A new day had dawned, marking the commencement of her self-imposed challenge. She blinked against the sunlight, reminding herself that today was not merely another day. It was the day she would step toward her own evolution. Energy coursed through her veins as she rubbed the remnants of sleep from her eyes, excitement juxtaposed with the familiar weight of doubt. What do I wear to a creative meetup? She mused, staring into her closet. Each article of clothing felt like a representation of her dual existence, one foot in a life defined by comfort and expectations, the other yearning for expression and truth. After several unproductive minutes, she settled on a simple yet vibrant sundress that symbolized her intent to break free from her cocoon of conformity. After dropping Jake off at school, Emily found herself grappling with hesitations. The meeting was mere hours away, and she could feel the intensity of her heart racing as she approached the cafe. What if she didn't fit in? What if her voice trembled, and the words caught in her throat? The myriad of what-ifs spiraled around her like a cyclone. But with each step toward the cafe, her resolve hardened. Upon entering, she was greeted by a cacophony of laughter and conversations, the air thick with creativity and camaraderie. Emily felt momentarily overwhelmed by the energy, a stark contrast to her cozy home. As she surveyed the room, the comfort of her chosen dress turned into something akin to an armor, giving her a brief moment of solace amidst her uncertainty. After a few tentative minutes, she forced herself to approach a small group engaged in animated discussion about art techniques. "Hi, I'm Emily," she introduced herself, her hands awkwardly tucked into her pockets, her throat dry. The group shifted to make space, and a woman with bright red hair smiled warmly back. "Nice to meet you, Emily. I'm Sarah. We were just talking about mixed media." The conversation flowed after that, surprising Emily with how easily the words spilled forth once she crossed the initial barrier of self-doubt. They shared stories of personal projects and struggles, and Emily found herself captivated. Each shared experience infused her with a sense of belonging she long craved. Within the dialogue, she discovered myriad perspectives, each unique but echoing a familiarity. They weren't just discussing art. They were sharing pieces of their lives' triumphs and failures alike. As discussions deepened, Emily felt a spark ignite within her that she hadn't felt in years. These were not just women. They were fellow travelers on a path to creative discovery, their vulnerabilities paving the way toward authenticity. She spoke about her plans for the blog, her aspirations to balance mothering and pursuing a passion, and their encouraging responses coaxed her self-doubt back into submission. The cafe began to empty, and Emily lingered, savoring the connection. Each person she met offered ideas and strategies on pushing past obstacles. "You need to create your process first," one advised, while another suggested keeping her audience in mind. Emily frantically took notes, taking in snippets of wisdom. But beneath the exhilaration lay a residual fear. What if this support network evaporated once she left the safety of this cafe? Could she genuinely build on what she learned today? Would she be brave enough? As she made her way home, the excitement of the day pulsed through her, mingling with a deeper introspection. The women she met embraced their vulnerability. They didn't shy away from criticism or judgment, and this realization struck her more profoundly than any fleeting surge of confidence. That night, with Jake tucked in bed, she sat at her desk, staring at the blank screen before her. Her outline remained unjotted, as a tangle of doubts resurfaced. Was she really ready to share her journey? Could she articulate her feelings effectively through the blog, and carve out her niche in a bustling digital world? Yet, as she breathed in deeply, another realization whispered back. Her voice was no longer just a small echo in her mind. She had heard it today, had felt it resonate when she spoke passionately about her dreams, and the world patiently listened. Perhaps the starting point was not simply her blog, but finding her voice, a truth she had hidden for too long. With determination igniting within, she closed her eyes, envisioning the words that would soon fill the blank page. The first post awaited her, but could it also hold the key to unlocking her true self? With a newfound clarity sharpening her focus, Emily felt the impending questions take shape, drawing her toward a decisive threshold. What would it take to turn mere inspiration into conviction? Would she rise to this challenge, breaking past barriers both internal and external? Her heart raced in anticipation. The moment felt ripe for discovery. And still, a sense of urgency nestled in her thoughts. The time had come to face the truth of her potential. Emily sat at her desk, the flickering cursor a relentless reminder of her inertia. Ideas jostled for space in her mind, but they stalled, caught in a web of self-doubt. What if she wasn't clever enough? What if her words fell flat? The confidence she felt earlier that day battled against a familiar darkness, casting long shadows over her burgeoning determination. Glancing at a yellow notepad nearby, she recalled snippets of wisdom shared at the cafe. Each line a reminder that vulnerability was a bridge to authenticity. She picked up the pen, its weight feeling oddly anchoring in her hands. Instead of words about her struggle, She wrote a single phrase that echoed within her. My voice matters. The declaration struck a chord, vibrating through her. If she wanted her blog to resonate, she first had to believe in her own narrative. That as thoughts began to flow, she constructed an outline. The first post would delve into her journey, a raw yet polished account of her conflicting desires, dreams, and turbulent self-rediscovery. Each sentence felt harder to carve out than the last, but gradually momentum built, her pen gliding over the paper like water finding its course. She embraced the discomfort, recognizing it as the price of authenticity. In that moment of creation, a quiet strength surfaced within her. Emily felt unsteady yet powerful. She was peeling back layers of doubt. With each paragraph, she challenged her ingrained habit of overthinking. Her past attempts to communicate fell flat, rooted in fear of judgment. But at this moment, she understood something vital. True vulnerability invites connection, and conversation. Dawn's light seeped into her room, illuminating the chaos of half-finished thoughts and coffee-stained papers. The newness of the day's potential enthused her. Today she would embark on a brave outreach, sharing her intentions and personal journey with the women from the cafe on social media. Still, a pit of anxiety twisted in her stomach. Who was she to step into this digital arena with such ambition? Years of crafting polite responses around her domestic life surfaced, yet she craved authenticity over societal expectations. Checking her reflection in the bathroom mirror, she took time to examine her features, searching for signs of the brave woman who had spoken so passionately in the cafe. Yes, she caught glimpses of that woman, the determination that sparked in her eyes, the newfound resolve straying from the ordinary. In that brief moment, she decided to embrace not just her creative aspirations, but also the person she'd become since challenging her self-imposed limitations. Fully dressed and steeling her resolve, she opened her laptop. The world of social media flashed before her, a medley of curated highlights and filtered perfection. But she chose authenticity over facades. Gathering her thoughts once more, she opened a new post and forged ahead. Today, I choose to share my voice, unfiltered, unpolished, yet real. How thrilling it felt to acknowledge her insecurities out loud. Her fingers ventured forth, encroaching upon the truth that had long been obscured. However, part of her questioned whether she could confront the potential criticism that would flourish alongside her digital venture. What if backlash came? What if she became the woman defined by failure, like so many had before her? Yet, in confronting that nagging fear, Emily heard the whispers of the women from the cafe echoing in her mind, those who faced their fears and shone through their vulnerabilities. A surge of adrenaline coursed through her as she finally hit post, the screen displaying her initial thoughts to the world. A weight lifted, but it was quickly replaced by a gnawing uncertainty, fostered by a mix of hope and dread. She recognized that this was merely the beginning. As the notifications began to roll in, a new thought took root in her mind. How would she maintain this momentum? She needed to ensure her message wasn't just a fleeting moment, but a beacon for herself and others on similar journeys. With that goal swirling in her consciousness, Emily closed her laptop, her heart pounding with newfound purpose. What awaited her on this path of public vulnerability? More importantly, what additional truths about herself might she uncover through the process of not only sharing her voice, but seeking her own audience? Emily realized that the real work was only just beginning. With her focus now sharpened, she made a decisive choice, but she felt the rolling tide of potential beyond the digital horizon, beckoning her forward. What other revelations lurked there, waiting for her to discover? Emily stood at a pivotal intersection of her life, poised between past fears and the beckoning promise of a new dawn. It had been a few months since she had shared her first blog post, and with each new entry, she felt the warmth of her words drawing a community around her, women echoing the struggles she had dared to unveil. Alongside the rhythmic click of her keyboard, the world she had once flinched away from had transformed with astonishing speed. Each post celebrated not just her journey as a single mother, but honored the wellspring of creativity she had begun to cultivate once more. Her blog had blossomed into a vibrant space where she shared lessons learned in the balancing act between ambition and motherhood. The support poured in, hard and fast women applauding her bravery and revealing their similar journeys to redefine their identities that had long been muffled by societal narratives. As Emily entered her living room. The sight of the finished blog, adorned with comments and likes, glittered like a trophy on her screen. She could hardly believe that what had begun as a whisper, "My voice matters," had grown into a rallying cry heard by many. It wasn't just the validation from readers that thrilled her. It was the quiet resilience she had unearthed within herself. The shy woman who once stood at the edge of her son's wedding, labeled a charity case, had transformed into a voice advocating for authenticity. Jake's laughter, ringing through the air like a melodic reminder of her purpose, pulled her from her thoughts. He bounded into the room, his youthful exuberance a contagious spark. You have to see this," he exclaimed, showcasing a colorful drawing he had made depicting both of them soaring through a sky of brightly colored balloons. Emily beamed, her heart lifting at his unrestrained enthusiasm. "Wow. Look at us flying high," she responded, crouching down to meet his eyes. In that moment, she felt a powerful resolve coursing through her, a commitment to continue nurturing both her son's dreams and her own. "Do you know what else is bold, Jake? Moms who carve out their dreams and fly just like you and me," she said, wiping a stray hair from her face, feeling the gravity of their shared moment, a moment of realization that her identity, newly embraced, wasn't just for her. It was a legacy she would pass down. Days turned into weeks, and news of her blog traveled among friends, fueled by the genuine spark of her stories. Emily found herself face to face with a publishing opportunity that had her heart racing, an invitation to contribute to an anthology focused on single parenting and resilience. The email arrived unexpectedly, but felt like the universe had aligned to reward her unwavering courage. As she penned her contribution, emotions she hadn't expected bubbled to the surface. With every typewritten word, she revisited the fractured pieces of herself and stitched them back together with newfound confidence. Each paragraph radiated her growth, the metamorphosis from a woman burdened by perceptions to a vibrant spirit, unapologetically seeking her place in the world. The day of the anthology's launch party arrived, enveloping her in a flurry of anticipation. Stepping into the venue, the resonance of conversations filled her with excitement, yet nerves sizzled within her. However, visions of all that she had persevered through surged to the forefront. Her heart swelled as she sat with other contributors, sharing stories and laughter, all marked by tenacity and vulnerability. During the event's highlight, Emily was invited to read an excerpt from her piece. The spotlight felt both exhilarating and daunting, but she stepped forward, clutching her page as if cradling a piece of her soul. Each word transcended beyond merely being read aloud. They were the echoes of her journey, the laughter, the doubts, the confrontations, and the passionate plea for authenticity. As she completed her reading, a palpable silence filled the room, followed by heartfelt applause. In that ethereal moment, standing in front of an engaged audience, she felt recognized not just as a writer, but as an empowered woman who had reclaimed her narrative. A few steps backstage, a fellow contributor approached her with a sparkle in her eye. "Your piece was so relatable. You really captured the essence of what it means to be vulnerable yet resilient. Thank you for sharing your truth," she said. Emily took a deep breath, the swell of satisfaction washing over her. She had proved to herself and others that her journey, one from shadow into light, was worthy of acknowledgement. No longer was she confined to old labels, nor did she navigate her identity through the lens of anyone else. Later, when she returned home, exhaustion swept over her as she glanced around at the evidence of her journey. The remnants of her previous fears lay behind, with Jake's joyful spirit illuminating their path. As she tucked him into bed, a sense of fulfillment enveloped her like a warm embrace. "You know what, Jake?" she whispered, leaning down for a gentle kiss. "We chase our dreams together, okay? Not just fly, but soar." His sleepy smile was all the affirmation she needed, one of confidence, of accomplishment, and the unshakable bond they shared. This journey of transformation cemented an internal truth. Emily was no longer merely a mother labeled by past judgments. She had championed her own narrative. She stood unyielding in the face of setbacks and embraced the journey ahead with solid confidence and profound strength. The markers of her success signified not just external validation, but a deep-seated acceptance of herself. She had mastered her identity, accomplished her ambition, and most importantly, restored her essence. No longer a ghost in the shadows, Emily had achieved a state of personal and professional resolution, embarking on futures waiting to be created, resonating with authenticity and courage. And here's your moment. You need to subscribe now to the channel to join Emily's journey and witness the next exclusive emotional stories unfurl. Don't miss out. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep these transformative tales alive. Every click makes a huge difference. Comment your reactions and theories about this journey. Let's celebrate together. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to find inspiration in Emily's story and reclaim their narratives. Don't wait even one more second. Show your support and fuel the fire for personal overcoming stories.